Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we have the new Tier 10 Research Bureau ship, the Sicilia import, to review for you guys today. The Sicilia is a Tier 10 Italian battleship based on the Colombo, but as you see right here, more secondary focused, equipped with SAP secondaries, boys. Finally, and big SAP secondaries too, not like the 90mm guns that we're used to on ships like the Napoli, but rather 127mm American SAP guns it does look like. At least they're in the American twin 5-inch mounts. But yes, this bad boy is, well, quite expensive to get. She's 60,000 Research Bureau points. You can acquire her right now in the Research Bureau. And speaking of that, massive shout out to the channel's Patreons. I'm not a CC nor supported by or affiliated with Wargaming in any way, shape, or form. So I do not get the Sicilia or any of the premium ships you see on this channel early or free to review. They are purchased outright with the ad revenue from the channel or the generous donations from the Patreons whose names should have just appeared up on screen here a few seconds ago, or might still be on screen right now. But if you wish to support the channel, Patreon is the best place to do so, besides of course just watching the streams and videos. So the Sicilia, I've been waiting quite some time for a ship like this to come out. I was very excited when she was initially announced, because again, a lot of the SAP secondary ships that we've gotten are, equipped with the 90mm SAP guns, which are good, but they don't really have that much of a punch, in comparison to what you could do if you had some proper, big 127mm 5-inch secondary guns. So we have that here with the Sicilia, and I'm very excited to see how that goes today. So I do know the Sicilia is, well, she trades a bit for that. You do get just HE and AP on the main battery gun. She has a short main battery gun range in order to get these secondaries out to their full potential. So we're going to see how well that goes today with the Sicilia. But let's go ahead and dive on into it. I have not played the ship beforehand. I have not looked at any reviews, so this is my genuine first impressions of the ship. So let's go ahead and get on into it, shall we? So start out with economically, of course, she is a Research Bureau ship, so you get the standard Tier 10 bonus package there. I will be running probably, the blue for the credits and green for the other aspects, just because I, of course, had to convert XP in order to get this ship, so I need to kind of build that back up. Alright, so let's take a look at the armor. Actually, the camo, because it looks like this black and white camo is the standard one. Oh, I forgot they messed with the exterior tab a little bit here. And yep, that's it. That's what you get. Which is really unfortunate, because the Italian camo, oh, that's something too. They don't have the candy cane stripe on the bow. That's interesting, because most of the not most, like all the Italian ships have that, that candy cane stripe. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a post-war design, which is why it is not there. No, year design 1945. Okay, huh. That's weird. Maybe it's because it's supposed to be like, what if with the surrender, the ship went to America and was refitted with 5-inch secondaries, and I guess they would have done away with the candy cane stripe. I don't know. That's weird. Someone that knows, let me know in the comments down below what happened there. But anyway, alright, so on to the actual ship itself. So armor, I mean, it's a Colombo, right? So 32mm bow, 60mm icebreaker belt, 375mm main belt there. Upper is 70, and then 150 around the 152mm guns. Same with the one back here. Alright. Stern is 32. Yep, and stern deck's 32. Bow deck is 32. Mid deck is 50. The turret faces are 406mm. Sides are 254s, rears are 380s, and roofs are 200s. Barbette is 400mm thick. And again, no surprise here, it is, again, the Colombo. So, there you go. The Citadel is just below the water. And you do have this, again, 375mm slat that does come down over it. So again, like the Colombo, if you catch it on the side and it's turning, it shouldn't be too hard to Citadel, but should be pretty tanky when you stay angled. Again, like most of the Italian battleships, both Tech Line and Premium, if you're used to that. Alright, so, yep, 89,900 hit points, the 31% torpedo damage reduction. I believe that is, yep, again, it's a Colombo, right? Alright, so for the guns, you get 16 381 15-inch guns with a 33-second base reload time. And they do rotate, these two in the rear do rotate 360 degrees. They do 180 and 38.3 seconds. They have a maximum dispersion of 251 meters, a maximum range of 18.9 kilometers. Just again, quick comparison with the Colombo. Yep, a little bit longer on the reload time there, but otherwise pretty similar. Right, we'll probably stop swapping back and forth. You guys get the idea by now. Okay, so for the HE, you have a 24% fire chance with a maximum damage of 5,100, 64 millimeters of HE pin, and those come out the tubes at 880 meters a second. For the AP shells, they do a maximum damage of 12,000, and those come out the tubes at 850 meters a second. And for the secondaries, the glorious 5-inch secondaries, you get 20 of them. They have a 6-second base reload time, 7.5 kilometer maximum range, maximum damage of 2,700, and they pin 36 millimeters of armor, which means they're going to pin everything pretty much they're going to run into. Of course, with the exception of, like, you know, some belt armors and stuff. But as far as, like, the extremities go, that's an easy barrier for them to cross. All right, very cool. And then, of course, you still get the 6x3 152 millimeter guns on top of that. And these bad boys pin 42 millimeters of armor and reload in 10 seconds and do 3,850 maximum damage. You know, these 152s, if you have the Michelangelo, you can very much tell when they get in on the action because, you know, the enemy target loses like 3,000 HP. Now, granted, the Michelangelo does have the quad barrel ones, not the tri-barrel ones, so there is that. But yes, indeed. Alright, you do get 2 flights of the depth charges with how many? Yep, 2 bombs per run. A has a rating of 83, has a 5.8 what, really? 5.8 kilometers? Isn't the Colombo's only 4 point something? Huh. That's interesting. I guess since it has the American dual 5-inch guns, they gave it a slightly longer AA range? Okay, 5.8 kilometers. I mean, I'll take that. You know, an Italian battleship with actual AA range. All right. She has a maximum speed of 29.6 knots, radius of 960 meters for her turning circle, and a 15.3 second rudder shift time. Her concealment is 17.3 kilometers base, so not very stealthy at all. Just running with Colombo. Is Colombo's that bad? Yeah, no. Well, the Colombo does have the module on, so we'll see as we go on. Alright, I don't know why I keep going back to the Laria. Alright, for her Box O gimmicks, she does get 4 charges of the repair party that regen 449 HP per second. That is active for 28 seconds. She does get the exhaust smoke generator, which is very nice for obviously any secondary ship to have. It's active for 60 seconds, takes 15 seconds for that individual puff to dissipate, and you have a radius of 0.9 kilometers, and it cools down in 2 minutes. 4 charges of that base, and your choice of spotter or fighter. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and spec her out with a secondary build and a secondary commander. I'll meet you guys right back here. Alright, so again, we're running a full secondary build. So we have Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. This, of course, increases the survivability of our secondary guns. And since we're building quite heavily into them, we want them to stay in the fight. So this increases the survivability by 100%, supposedly at least. Then I went with Damage Con Mod 1 because fires and flooding suck, and this reduces the chances of that happening by 5% to fires and 3% to floodings. And then I took Secondary Battery Mod 1 because this increases the range out by 20% and also reduces the dispersion by 20% as well, so therefore making the secondary battery guns more effective. Damage Con Mod 2, of course, because, well, fires and flooding suck. And this reduces the runtime of each by 15%, so that's less damage we're taking from fires and floods. And then, of course, I took Concealment Systems Mod 1 to give us a little bit of a boost to our concealment. This gives us a 10% boost to our detection range, so we're a little bit sneakier with that. And then I took Auxiliary Armaments Mod 2. This gives us another 20% buff to our secondary battery reload time. It does also buff the AA as well, since we have like an actual usable AA range that might actually do something now. But that's cool, right? Alright. Then for the Commander, again, standard secondary build. Preventive maintenance to reduce the chance of our secondaries getting knocked out yet again by 15%. It reduces the chance of the other modules, the rudder and the engine and such, of getting incapacitated by 30%. And also, again, buffs the AA by 15%, just like it does with the secondary survivability. Grease the gears for a better turret traverse. That's always nice to have in a close quarters situations. The advantage of getting your turrets around faster is one you do kind of want when you're driving by each other. And then, of course, we took long-range secondary shells, which gives us another 20% buff to our secondary battery gun range. And then, of course, manual secondary battery aiming to give us that 10% buff to our reload time and another 10% buff to the dispersion. Of course, after 45 seconds of firing, well, I should say over the course of 45 seconds of firing, your secondaries will increase their accuracy by 50% over the course of 45 seconds. Adrenaline rush because, well, if we're going to take damage, might as well get something for it. And for every 0.2% for every percentage of HP loss, you get a 0.2% buff to the main battery reload time and to the secondary battery reload time. So, the more damage you take, the faster you reload. That took Emergency Repair Expert to get an additional charge of the repair party, and it also increases the runtime of the repair party by 10%. So the more it runs, the more HP you do get back. And then I took Fire Prevention Expert to get our maximum number of fires down from 4 to 3, and it further reduces the chance of our ship catching on fire by 10%. Now, you can, of course, take Concealment Expert to get another 10% boost to your concealment, but the ship does have an exhaust smoke generator, so you can just basically go undetected whenever you want with that, as long as there's no radar or hydro around, right? And this does give us a 15.6 kilometer detection range, which is... it's workable, right, as is, but if I feel like I really need to swap that out, I will. But anyway, at the rest of the the rest of the characteristics, what did that do? So, for the secondaries, our maximum range is now 11.3 kilometers, and we have a 4.1 second reload time on the 127mm guns, and the 152s now have a 6.8 second reload time. So... Yeah. We've gotten some real DPM here. Although the range isn't quite as far as I would like. This is with the flag as well. 11.3 kilometers by tier 10 is just kind of... that's on the edge of usable. But again, with the toolbox that this ship has, I think we will be able to get it to work. Maneuverability is up to 31.1... maneuverability. Our speed's up to 31.1 knots now with the speed flag. Alright, so I believe that's it. We're going to go ahead, take the Sicilia into battle, and I'll meet you guys there in my voiceover review of the Sicilia. Alright guys, voiceover Mountbatten here, and if I sound a little odd, it's because my medication's wearing off and I am as clogged up as I sound. But anyway, the Sicilia. Now, this is a ship I had hyped myself up quite a bit for, and when I was in port, I'm not going to lie, after I put the commander build on it and such, and I worried about this when I saw the base range of the secondaries, I saw that range only went out to 11.3 kilometers. 11.3 kilometers is a good secondary range by like tier 8, tier 9 standards, but when you get up to tier 10, that's on the shorter end of the stick for sure. Now, it's not quite as bad as some secondary ships that have like a 10.7, 10.6 kilometer secondary range. It's not quite to that level of bad, but that did make me go, well, maybe we can still make it work. Because typically, for secondary ships to work in today's World of Warships, they have to be over-specialized, right? Like the Schlieffen, where the secondary range and the concealment range are essentially one and the same, right? That way, when you are detected, you are able to, just let your secondaries rip. The Sicilia can't quite do that, right? Because even if you do take the concealment skill, it gets it down to like, 13 kilometers, which is surely, better than the 15 that it has now, right? But it's still not overly great. And you still lose the ability to, not be on fire in 4 places at once. So I was a little concerned about that at first. However, despite the shorter secondary range, despite the massive detection range, despite the, on paper, terrible main battery gun performance, the ship still did well, guys. And I mean, I had some matches that were far from like, all right, we're brawling 24/7. It's Brawlhalla here. I'm constantly within the secondary range. Heck no. I had maybe like one match where I actually, got the secondaries going for more than, 5 minutes, right? Where they actually got to chew on stuff. The other matches, heck no. But the ship still did well. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it, outperformed all expectations. It's an amazing ship. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. I'm just saying it was able to keep up, which was surprising, again, given its on-paper performance. Because when you're not in secondary range, when you don't have those 127 millimeter SAP secondaries going on top of the 152s that it has, you do have some not great guns on paper with the 15-inch guns, because they are, 15-inch guns at tier 10 without SAP, so you're restricted to AP and HE, and the Sigma isn't that great either. I believe it's like 1.6, so it's terrible, and it has shorter, main battery gun range than the Colombo does in its optimum configuration, because of course you have to take the secondary module, not the range module, so you have less range, they're not accurate, and you don't have SAP. But surprisingly so, when you're throwing 16 HE shells at the enemy team, you tend to get enough to hit to at least cause a couple of fires. And that's how I played the Sicilia. If anything was like outside of 14, 15 kilometers and not just sitting there flat broadside, I just kept the HE loaded. Because, it's like a 24% HE fire chance, but you're throwing 16 shells at the enemy target. And, the gun performance in terms of accuracy isn't that great, but it tends to be in most cases enough to get a couple of shells to hit the target and either get some fires or get some okay pins going, right? And then once you are able to push up to 14, 13 kilometers, you swap it over to the AP and you really let them rip, because it still has the Italian AP. The Italian AP is still plenty oomphy enough, right? And when you have 16, 15-inch guns, like that's going to get it done if anyone's dumb enough to show you enough broadside, which, I mean, that does happen at higher tier because players still do that, still perfectly broadside to a smokescreen. You'd be surprised how many times I was playing this thing and I am smoked up like 3 kilometers from an enemy ship, and they just go, oh, well, he's in the smoke, I guess he's not going to fire, and go broadside, and I'm like, I'm still in the smokescreen, buddy. You have a very bad hold on objects permanence, on object permanence, right? And then you just let them, eat the 16, 15-inch guns, and it's like, that happened. Again, you'd be surprised how many times players ignore a battleship-sized smokescreen 5 kilometers from them. It's very weird, but that happened like 3 times when I was playing the Sicilia. But, of course, you can't really rely on that. But, again, it still has 16, 15-inch guns. It packs quite a punch there. So that's the main battery. The secondary guns, how are they? Well, they are very good when you can use them. When you get someone within your 11.3 kilometer range, again, the 127s are pinning 36 millimeters of armor, which that's over the 32 millimeter threshold. So the extremities of those tier 10 ships, they can easily chew on that. And then you've got the 18 152s, which can pin 42 millimeters of armor, which when those things really get going, I mean, those guys do a lot of the heavy lifting too when it comes to the secondary damage, because those things are pinning 42 millimeters of armor. Which, I mean, that's just pretty much everything else you really need to worry about, right, as far as secondary pins go. So they're really putting in the heavy work when those 152s are able to get onto the target. And I mean, like, you are going to be absolutely melting down light cruisers, heavy cruisers, the battle cruisers, or the more lightly armored battleships like the French and the British. This thing just rips them a new one. And even, of course, with the more well-armored one, with those 152s, they're going to find something that they can bite into, and just the overwhelming volume of fire with the secondary guns, it's going to make it happen, right? So it's wonderful when you can get the secondaries into the fight and get them going. Now, there's some weirdness going on with the way the 127s are set up. If you look at the rear 3 on the superstructure. They're all pretty much in a row. So there are some very awkward situations where you're not really getting all of your secondary guns on target, and you do have to show a lot of broadside to get them going, which can, of course, lead to you getting, the crap slapped out of you, right? So you got to be very mindful about that. But again, with the exhaust smoke, when you have that popped up and there's no radar around to keep you spotted, you can, in your smoke, just let them have your full broadside, because they can't see you and they can't lock on to you. They can try to blind fire you, but unless they get very lucky, I doubt very much they'll be able to do any serious damage to you. So you can let your guard down a little bit, let those angles open up, and let the full force of your secondaries really get to work on your target. And of course, you got the spotter or the fighter plane you can pop up while you're in smoke and be sailing around in smoke, just letting your secondaries chew on the world. And that's really great when you can do that. And the ship is, of course, tough enough against the Columbo hull to where you don't have to use a smoke screen to use the secondaries. I'm not saying that. It's just that when you can use that smoke and secondary combo together, it's just such a nice combo, right? Like just with the Michelangelo and just with the Napoli, when you've got that exhaust smoke going and you got your plane up and you're letting the secondaries fire and they're getting good consistent damage while you're chilling in your smoke screen, it's a wonderful time, right? And even when you don't have the smoke screen up, I mean, the thing, again, it's still the Columbo hull. You can still take quite a few hits as long as you know how to angle. It's a really fun ship in my opinion. And I mean, I'm very excited it's in the game. I'm glad I finally have it. And it's like the Columbo I've always wanted, right? The secondary Columbo. So overall, how would I rate the Sicilia? So, and again, this is with a caveat. So I'm going with the caveat of just going by brawling ships right now, right? So just taking it as a brawling ship, not taking the current meta into consideration, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Why? Because it still has those really weird secondary angles on the those 127 millimeter secondary turrets. That does mean you have to show a little bit more angle, and it does have such a low range at tier 10 for the secondary guns. But again, when you can use a smoke screen, you can make it work, right? But it's still missing a lot of the other secondary ships at tier 10, the Schlieffen and the GK, they're in the 12s, right? And the Sicilia's in the 11.3 range. So because of that, and it doesn't have any type of Hydra or anything, and when you are pushing up in today's World of Warships with submarines and DDs and such, you really would want to have some type of Hydro. But again, I think if they did give it Hydro, it would be a little bit busted, right? So an 8 out of 10, that is good, right? A Schlieffen's a 10 out of 10, all right? Now, taking into consideration the rest of the current day meta, this thing's like a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6.5, because you will be finding yourself most of the time sitting toward the rear of your range, spamming HE, waiting to get into a close quarters situation that may or may not happen given how the match goes. And you might get some matches like I got, where for whatever reason no one wanted to spot, even though there wasn't any big threat to them on that flank other than the other DDs that I guess they didn't want to go up against for some reason, and they just left my flank, right? So you got to go chase the DD, be like, hey, I need you to spot, right? So I can see what I'm shooting, right? But yeah, of course, when those situations happen, it does suck to be in a more secondary focused ship. So yeah, you're going to have those situations just like any other secondary ship. So again, just from a purely brawler standpoint, 8 out of 10. From a current meta standpoint, 7, 6.5-ish out of 10. Now, Research Bureau ship, though, you do have to regrind lines. You have to get 60,000 Research Bureau points in order to acquire the Sicilia. So, is that worth it? If you like the secondary playstyle, if you like to brawl, yeah, I would say it is worth it. But I would definitely pick up the Ohio first. The Ohio's a better ship than this one. This is a fun ship. It's going to be fun in randoms. Airship Escort comes back around on the 22nd. It's going to be a blast in that. But Ohio is fun in that. Fun in Airship Escort, but great for competitive as well. So definitely pick up the Ohio first. And then if you're a super hardcore brawler, I would pick up the Sicilia after that. But that is just my 2 cents. Because again, you got to reset lines. If you got the booster, it's going to take you, 5-6 times to get the Sicilia. If you reset the Frugamo line, that is the cheapest line to reset. So, yeah, I think it's worth it if you do, again, really enjoy brawling. If you're just looking for like a good research bureau ship, like a one and done, this isn't it. That's the Ohio. So guys, that's my Sicilia first impressions review. Let me know what you guys think about the Sicilia in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 75,000 subscribers. Thanks to you guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a great Thursday and a great rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.